Major corruption is very rare. When cops don't do the right thing, sometimes cops are either physically or emotionally afraid to do their job, or they're lazy.
My quick little story was, it's like an emergency. These other two guys that I thought were my boys, they heard my 85. They were 3 blocks away, and they didn't. How do I know? Because we drove by, we saw them parked there, they were eating.
And I think that's something that the public needs to kind of understand. There are officers that have high level of integrity, and there are officers that have really become police officers to help people. But the culture in these major police departments sometimes deters you from doing that. And so it's not just your perception of what we lack or what we didn't do. It's also us.
So a lady comes in with some sort of counselor, okay? So they proceed to tell me that she's been staying for about a month and a half with this guy who promised her asylum. It was like an immigrant from Central America, whatever. But the guy was charging her rent, not money, but sex. So it's a rape. So I go to it was a DV sergeant, and I explain to him what's happening. So I go back, I'm taking the report. He comes to me, pulls me aside, and he's there, starts yelling at me. This isn't rape, Garcia. All it is harassment. And I'm like, huh?
What is summer like? What do you guys miss about the job? You know, the craziest calls you've been on that your experience really helped you to sort things out.
So I have an interesting story.
Hello, this is Voices from the Watch. I'm your host, Dave Goldstein. We decided that we were going to do kind of a threesome today. I got Santo Taveras, who was in our very first podcast, and Mike Garcia. One of the reasons we're doing it is because Santo was actually Mike's first partner, and Mike had mentioned that. And a couple of people reached out to me and said, hey, why don't you bring them together, see all these years later. And so I thought that would be a good idea. And we've all worked together. I worked with Santo, Mike worked with Santo, I work with Mike. So I think this will be good. And we're going to just start it off on a topic that I think everybody's experienced, whether you're a cop or not, okay? And you know, from this podcast, we're pretty big supporters of law enforcement done right. And we all try to do the right thing, okay? But what we're going to talk about for a little while is when cops don't do the right thing. And I'm not talking about major corruption is very rare. Major corruption is very rare. It's rare cops don't go around murdering people, stuff like that. But what you see is sometimes cops are either afraid to do their job, maybe physically or emotionally afraid to do their job, or they're lazy. Not all cops, most cops are not. And you see it less, I think, than you used to. But you do see those cops who do not do their job properly. When I call the police, it might be something like, hey, the guy keeps breaking my windows. He is down the street in that car. And the cops are like, the cops trying not do their job. It might be something like that, or it might be something where they're not doing a thorough investigation, they don't care, they're not taking a report, or it might be something where there's a cross-complainant situation, meaning there's a fight between people, and the cops aren't trying to figure out what actually happened, just making, making judgments that are without fact, without a thorough investigation, okay? So we're going to talk about that. Santo, you want to go first?
First of all, yeah, I'm so happy that I'm here. Mike, I love that guy. He is just an amazing person. He's one of those guys that I worked with him for a few years. And one thing I noticed about Mike when I met him was that he was very compassionate about helping people. So that's why I think it's great that all three of us are here on the same timeline. But yeah, David, to touch a little bit on what you're saying, 100% corruption. That word is so key, right, to so many things. Corruption has levels. Of course, there is major corruption, like you had mentioned, things like theft, murder. I mean, it just goes on and on. But then there's those small little tidbits that a lot of people don't see. That I never.
Major corruption really isn't that common.
It's not common at all. But small little minute things that kind of make us look incompetent amongst the public, and also builds distrust amongst police officers. And there's many cases like that where people kind of like look the other way when they really shouldn't. Things like that can cause a big distress amongst the community of policing. Because policing is a service, and so when you have that, again, building distrust amongst each other and distrust in the community. I get called to go handle a situation that requires just a little bit of policing, not necessarily arrest or anything like that. And then one of the two police officers decide it's not that big of a deal. Go handle it. We're going to leave now. We're going to go handle other things. That is very common with major metropolis police departments. And then those people are left with a little bit of a disgusting taste in their mouth. I
Right. And
call the
especially when
police.
you are actually busy, you are legit busy, but there is something that could be handled better.
Definitely, because there's times where you actually can't handle certain things, but when we're not legitimately doing anything, listen, when no one's asking you to go out of your way, but doing your job shouldn't be or feel like you're going out of your way. Again, those type of relationships build with partnerships. Like for example, myself and Mike, when we partnered up, we understood. We understood a lot about what we were doing. And one thing mentioning you, Mike, again, I used to love how Mike had like this overwhelming, sometimes too much, compassion with people. It was like he would listen, like what's wrong? I personally used to be like, hey, Mike, let's just go. But I always let him rock. I always let him do his thing because I saw how people reacted to that. Here's a police officer asking me, how am I doing? Right? That's something that is just invaluable in my opinion.
Thank you, Hassan. Appreciate that.
Mike Garcia, you remember him from a couple podcasts ago. Just to a reminder, Mike, I worked with him in 8-1. Before that, Mike worked in the 7-9 precinct for a while, all which are the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn. And then Mike, for a couple of years, he went to prisoner transport, where he was transporting prisoners all over northern Brooklyn, and then he wound up in the 7-5 precinct in East New York, which is very big precinct, very busy precinct. And so Mike has a lot of Brooklyn North experience as well. And Mike, I'm sure you've seen this. Some of the greatest cops I ever met were 7-5, 7-3, 8-1, like all these places. But there are some cops who took too many shortcuts, and who, like some of them, a lot of it's attitude. If a cop's a hard worker, he's going to be a hard worker. And if he takes his job seriously, he's going to take. But there are cops who are either lazy or don't take people's concerns seriously when they should. They like, and you have to be well-rounded as a cop.
I would say
Yes.
100% I agree with that. I remember one incident, small, minute incident. Wasn't really anything crazy, but I still to this day remember it.
Mhm.
I was with this rookie police officer, and I can't remember the incident. I just know that there were a few cops there. Wasn't anything crazy. I think it was a dispute or something along those lines. Don't remember much from it, but I just remember that interaction with this rookie police officer. We get there, we're on the backup. It's not our job. It's not our main. We're not the main people there in charge of this. We just show up on the back end. And someone at that scene, a civilian, turns to us and asks us a question. The partner I was with that day, rookie police officer, he looks at this person and says, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm just a city worker."
Oh.
And I remember him saying that, and I was just appalled. Appalled. I get in the car and I tell the guy, listen, as long as we are working together, I don't ever want to hear you say that to someone. If you do not know the answer, you tell them, ma'am, I am not aware of that type of regulation or rule. I would suggest maybe find the help that you need and then blah, blah, blah. In other words, be a professional. Don't speak to people that way. I'll never forget the lady's face when he said that. It was like her jaw dropped. Like this is just a police officer telling me this. Like it was an unexpected answer. Those little things like that lead to those major shortcuts. And sure enough, that police officer later on got himself into some situation which I was not surprised. His attitude was towards that level, and then he also had a reputation of distrust amongst his peers. So yeah, those little small snippets of of what is the word that we use? S-canning, or in other words, just looking the other way. It
Shit
caused,
canning.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
sometimes you will shit can a call, which is what we say you're not doing the right thing.
You're not
You're
doing your
not
job.
you're not
You're not
taking a
doing.
report you're supposed to take. You're not making an arrest you're supposed to take. You're not taking the time you're supposed to take. Shit canning a call, basically.
You know, I just thought of a story from the 7-5 when I was speaking of shit canning, where it's funny. The weirdest things happened to me while I was hurt. I got hurt in that place so many times. So I think to me, the first or second time I got hurt, I was stationed out security, doing reports, whatever, TS, a little bit of everything.
TS is the telephone switchboard. It's basically where you're answering calls and you're also assigning 311 calls and dealing with people who are coming in who want to talk. Either you're taking reports and stuff like. It's very busy.
Exactly.
Very
Thank
busy.
you for explaining that, Dave. So, lady comes in with her some sort of counselor. Okay, so they proceed to tell me that she's been staying for about a month and a half with this guy who promised her asylum. The lady was like an immigrant from like Central America, whatever. But the guy was charging her rent, not money, but sex. So
Okay.
it's rape. It's rape. That's case closed. I mean, So I go to the DV. It was a DV sergeant, and I explained to him what's happening. They're living together.
Domestic violence.
Domestic violence. Thank you. I explained to him this is a situation, and we need to get a car out there, guy, and bring him in. He's a freaking rapist. So I go back. I'm taking the report. He comes to me, pulls me aside, but this is now in front of the desk where the desk officer's there now, who, by the way, is super sympathetic sergeant. Love that guy. And he's there, starts yelling at me. This isn't rape, Garcia. It's a dispute. All it is harassment. And I'm like, huh? And he was basically shit candy. I'm like, no, Sergeant, it's rape. Like it or not, it is what it is.
Yeah,
I'm not changing
like
the report. It messed up. No, so he got upset that I went there and, I guess I messed up his day. I got whatever he was doing back there. So they had to send a sector because his DV cops were doing something else, his domestic violence cops. So apparently the sector guy came over to him and says, oh, Sarge, why you send me to this? This is your... So it's like, well, on his part, very disrespectful. Shouldn't have done that. But then he's taking it out on me. And I'm like, bro, I'm just giving you the heads up. I had to arrest him myself, but I can't. But it was a situation like that. It was like, why are you shit-canning this? It's a rape. No, thank God the guy ended up getting arrested and, justice prevailed, so to speak. But I was horrified. He was trying to change the whole thing, the narrative. He was changing the narrative. And I'm like, no, dude, that is what it is.
Yeah, things are what they are. You try and change the narrative.
That was really messed up.
You're already in the wrong.
Exactly. And then the other guy apologized. Yeah, and the desk officer, the sergeant apologized to me, saying he had no right to talk to him. I'm like, no, Sergeant, it's all right. It's all right. But it's bad. That was bad.
It's very heartbreaking when those type of situations happen. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry, Dave. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm just thinking, and I'm putting myself in your place, Mike. I can imagine actually listening to this horrific story, knowing what's going on, and then you go to the people that you're supposed to be able to know more about this than you, and they come back with you with something like that. That's very heartbreaking. I mean, it's like, how do you maneuver through something like that? I personally never got used to stuff like that, and I've seen it. How did that make you feel? Like, how do you do that?
Oh, I anger. Like, I wanted to curse him out. I don't want to strangle him, but of course I couldn't do that. Had to bring it down. I let him do all the yelling. Who knows what he was going through? And then the other sergeant called into that. He's like, he apologized. So he had no right to talk to you like that, which was very cool of him. He didn't have to do that. And then I never got an apology, nothing. You know what he told me, that fucker? He told me, you know what? I don't want to see you. I don't want to see you in my office for the rest of the day. I was just like, all right, no problem. I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me. I'm doing my job. God forbid.
Well, it's like,
messed up.
I mean, with stuff like that. Now, I've given a couple of examples on this show, even about cops just doing like ridiculous stuff, like not going in when someone needed help, or, a domestic where they knock on the door, boom, 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 boom. A woman answers. There's a guy behind her holding a knife to her throat, and they don't investigate. and then we find that out later that that's what happened. Obviously, that's inexcusable, and that's a very high level of incompetence. But what we're talking about here is it's a lower level of incompetence. It's sort of a knowing incompetence. It's knowingly trying to get rid of stuff that's uncomfortable that you don't want to deal with. And I'm going to give an example, a non-patrol example, but this is, I think, the spirit of it. I was a lieutenant in the 113 precinct in South Jamaica. On the edge of our precinct, 113, very big precinct. On the edge of our precinct, we had Kennedy Airport.
Oh, yeah.
So we had some hotels over there. All right. Now, a couple of them wound up being like mostly homeless shelters, but this one wasn't. I think this was like a Hampton Inn or something. It wasn't homeless. Anyway, not that it matters, but just to give the overview of what we're going through. So, my cops go to a call. Basically, a woman, third-party caller, but a witness, sees a male punching a 2-year-old in his car. Not hitting, not smacking, not going like naughty, 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 punching a 2-year-old in his car. Cops do the right thing. I was running around. I think I didn't even hear the job. I would have gone to it, but they were already gone though. The people, the woman called, but by this point the people were already gone.
Shit. Okay.
Whoa, no. It was right by the hotel, so the cops are thinking maybe they're staying in a hotel.
Of course.
They look there and they find out who it was. So they know the people. They live in, I don't know, Poughkeepsie. Somewhere outside of New York City. Okay. So I have them. Okay. So you have basically a felony assault on a child that you have to investigate. You have to do a welfare check for this child. So you have to locate the child and you have to do an investigation. A crime occurred in the confines of our precinct. So they call, I'm doing other stuff, whatever. So I call child abuse squad. They call the child abuse squad. The child abuse squad is like, they don't live in the city. Well, it's nothing. When you have a third party caller, and they basically hang up on him. Now, so these child abuse squad, they told him no, and basically hang up on him. So I'm mad now. I call their supervisor, their lieutenant or whoever. I talk to her, and she's like, obviously this is a crime. We have to investigate. It doesn't matter. They don't live in the city.
It happened in the city.
In our city.
Right.
So she winds up saying, okay, you're agreeing with me. It's a crime. But anyway, I got some pushback. My detectives, some people are like a little bit like, oh, we have to go. Yeah, you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care if you have to send someone from that jurisdiction up to do the welfare check, but you need to investigate that crime when you have a verified witness, a witness who has, that we could see no reason to lie or anything. You have to check on the child and you have to do the investigation and stuff like that. But I've seen cops do that patrol-wise plenty of times. So we say, all right, well, ma'am, I didn't see him hit your son, right? Let's say it's like a stranger and hits, an 8-year-old, and you say, well, listen, I didn't see him hit your 8-year-old son. That's what you got to do an investigation.
Right.
You got to do an investigation. Look, if you're not willing to put pen to paper and explain exactly what you saw and document what you did, then there's a reason for that, because you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, or you're not doing something you should be doing. It's always better to make the arrest early on when you know there's an arrest going to be made. If you can get the guy to come back or the woman to come back to the location, it's always better than just giving them, okay, well, the detectives will handle it later. Nah, you know what? If you can get them, it's so much safer for you to do that so that things don't escalate later after you leave. Right? And then a restraining order or order of protection can be issued.
I remember once I had a domestic, we responded to a domestics, and I was not the initial responding officer. I was the backup, myself and my partner at the time. We get there. It was a young lady, very beautiful young lady, and she had a dispute. It was the day of a wedding that they were going to go to, her and her boyfriend. We get there, and the night before, her boyfriend got a little bit drunky, and he just went off on her, and he just went to town on her. I mean, her nose was swollen, eye was cheek swollen. It was like really bad. So again, I'm responding as the backup officer. This is not my call. As I get there, the scene had ready. The guy was gone. He was not there, and the officers are pulling out a report. They're literally writing a report. They're asking for what we call a medical aid card. The paramedics are there, kind of checking her out. She didn't have anything broken. It was just really severely bruised. But as soon as I got there, I look at this girl and I go, "When did this happen?" It happened this morning. It had to be like maybe like 1 o'clock when we got there, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and the guy left. So I'm asking her, "Do you know where he is now? This is not my job. I'm the secondary officer, myself and my partner." And she goes, "Yes, I do know where he is." I'm looking around like, why are we not going over there?
Exactly.
We're like, hey, what? And the responding officers look at me like, this is not your job. Didn't say nothing to me, but I could tell. And they're just literally writing the report, and the other one's writing the medical aid card while paramedics are looking at her. And I still can't fathom, why are we not going over there? She's telling you she knows where he is. This girl is beaten, like he beat her. Actually, later we found out he broke her cheekbone. But anyway, so I asked her, where exactly is he? For those who do not know Brooklyn is broken down into different precincts, and there are precincts that are close to each other. In our case, we were in the 8-1 precinct that's in Bedside area. That is the northern part of Brooklyn. In that same northern part of Brooklyn, there's another precinct, and it's the 7-5. That's in the East New York area. That's where this young man was, literally
It's
calling
close
her.
by.
It's pretty close by.
5 minutes.
So I
Yeah.
said to them, So I said, guys, I'm gonna go grab him. So I went with my partner and I knocked on the guy's door, and he didn't pick up. He's not there. She calls us back. I gave the victim. I gave her my phone number. Listen, I'm gonna go see if he's there. Sure enough, she calls me back. He's like, listen, he just walked into your precinct. He walked to precinct. I I made the arrest. It was just the easiest thing in the world to go get the guy. He knows we're looking for him. And we made the arrest instead of having him and detectives give him a call and blah blah. I made the arrest on the spot. And this young lady was so appreciative, and I was shocked. I mean, she had her family coming to the precinct as I was processing this arrest. I got to tell you, I didn't feel like I did anything, you know, out of the norm. This was
No, it's just your job.
yeah, it was
And
just my job. I didn't go out of my way in any way whatsoever. But I remember of that situation. I do remember. I'll never forget. My relationship changed with there was those 2 police officers that responded. The actual initial responding officers, we were actually tight. And after that, my relationship on a personal level changed. They kind of like backed off from a little bit from me. One of them called me Inspector Gadget once. And I'm like, and it's funny, but I took offense to it, and I understood why. It was that culture of, we just need to take
But about the domestic thing is, I would do that as a cop too, and I would do it as a supervisor. Now, let's just say, oh, supervisors shouldn't be going out to all these calls because this and that. But guess what? You guys know, as a supervisor, I knew if people were doing what Santo was saying. You know that, and I did it through the day I retired as a lieutenant, and so I wouldn't have let that happen. I would say, all right, we're gonna go get him. If you got something going on, you don't want to take the arrest, I'll find someone to take the arrest. I'm not really worried about that. I'm just worried about this arrest being made because I've seen it where he comes back later and beats her up even worse. On rare instances kills her. And I've seen that too. It's very bad. You need to, in those situations, if you know where the person's at, and a lot of the times, and I've said this before, the victim knows where the suspect hangs out. She knows, a lot of times
He's
she knows his other
he
girlfriend,
he is probably texting her while we're there.
Of
right?
course.
hmm She knows if he's going to run to his mom's house, which a lot of these guys do. They run to their mom's house. She knows there's a good chance. There was one time we had this domestic violence victim. He was domestic violence suspect. He was one of the biggest ones in Brooklyn North. And for some reason, they couldn't catch him for 2 years. And he kept beating on this girl. He kept beating on her and he's pimping her out. we say to her, we get there quick one time. Me and I forgot who I was working with. We get there quick. Where does he go? She goes, he always goes out the side exit. Sure enough, I go, hey, have someone watch that side exit real quick. We get him. They're amazing. They've been looking for him for 2 years. Well, you know what? Get to the call quickly and don't waste time on nonsense. If she tells you, I want him arrested, I'm all but, which she's not going to want maybe in 2 hours, but she wants it now. I'm all buddy. He always escapes. He always escapes through that side exit. You got to look. We still checked the apartment to make sure she wasn't misleading us, but I had someone else waiting for him when he went out that exit, and then I think he fought us a little bit because then they were tussling with him. But like, and and with I've had a couple of those where I caught someone who's like, everyone's like, oh my god, what did you do? It was just about being persistent. It's just about caring about my job.
Well, we're talking about different scenarios that kind of like I wouldn't say stop, Mike. I don't know if I would say stop, but kind of like tried to push us or deter us from doing you call the right thing, which I call just doing our job. I would tell you that I still fall under the same umbrella that affects not just police officers. I'm sorry, not just the community, but it affects police officers. I mentioned to you that after that situation with me, my relationship changed with those colleagues, right? Colleagues that I held at a high esteem. And I see that happen often, often with people that know each other for years, working with each other for years, and then that small just lack of integrity changes everything between officers and supervisors as well, right? And the atmosphere changes very quickly, and I think that's something that the public needs to kind of understand. Now, there are officers that have high level of integrity, and there are officers that really become police officers to help people. But the culture in these major police departments sometimes deters you from doing that. And it's not just your perception of what we lack or what we didn't do. It's also us. It's hard to work in an atmosphere like that where you're known as the one guy that would go out of his way. When in your mind, I'm not going out of my way. I'm just simply doing my job. I'm here to help people. I remember this one thing, and Mike, you can help me on this. I used to be told this by a lot of police officers. It was like, dude, mind your business. And just like in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this is my business.
Exactly.
This is why I'm here.
Exactly.
I'm paid and trained to be nosy.
Right.
Yeah. I was trained to be nosy. That's what I was trained to. It was my job, and it really frustrated me so much. I mean, I lost a lot of friends because of that. It used to frustrate me so much. We're like, yeah, dude, I'm not going out of my way. I lost a very, 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 very close friend of mine, close friend of mine. I loved her very much. I lost her because of that. One day, something simple and stupid. We were in an adjourning or a sister precinct, right? And we're driving back to our local precinct, and we were waved down by someone on the street. And I stopped. I was driving, and as soon as we pull over, the guy says, "Officers, officers, officers." He's really irate, very. Looks like he just got into a dispute. I just got into a major dispute. I'm a landlord, and I just got into a fight with my tenant. Blah 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 blah. I just called 911. You guys responding? She literally looks at him and says, "Look at the car, sir. This is the 8-1, not the
I
8-3.
knew who that
This is
was,
this
and
is not
don't
this
feel
is
bad
not
about that.
this is
I know
not
who
our
it was.
dear." She's actually upset at him for stopping us. And I gotta remember, she raised the window and looks at me and tells me, "Let's go." Obviously, what did I do? I drove off, but I never forget. I'm holding on to the steering wheel, I'm sorry, I couldn't help but say it. And I called her by her first. I just called her by her first name, and I said, it would not cost us anything to just stand by till the responding precinct shows up. We're not doing anything illegal. And she let me have it. Oh, that's not our jurisdiction. And she just let me have it. And after that, unfortunately, our relationship never was the same. It was very sad to have that happen over nothing. But she was known for being one of those people.
Right? Yeah. And
Did she
yeah.
hold on? Did she have time on? Did she have time on?
We
I
came
know.
out.
I'll
We
tell you
grad.
after, Mike.
We
I'll tell you who
yeah
it is after. I know who it is.
Oh,
Oh,
she
But
had
listen,
listen,
time on.
okay. But anyway,
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. But
Oh
it doesn't
So,
boy.
matter. It's not. No, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter because it doesn't
No,
matter
but I
about
mean,
that one.
but anyway, like,
That
and
one
I
particular
had to get,
officer.
and I had to do things with that too. I had to, but I was a supervisor, and that a lot of that comes from the top because in any job you have people who are going to do the bare minimum, and it doesn't mean they're necessarily bad people, but some people get into bad habits and they get cynical. Your job as a supervisor is to keep that cynicism in check and to say no. You know what? This is your job. This is what we're going to do. And sometimes it's about being the good guy. Look, you know what? I'll help you out because I don't want you to like just do stuff behind my back. I say, listen, I'll find someone else to handle this, you know, whatever. We're going to handle it. But, and sometimes it's like, no, you're going to handle it. But it has to be handled. And you can't let people get into those bad habits. And what you're saying, Santo, somebody's like, all right, well, why'd you come to my call and tell me how to handle it? Because you were handling it wrong. That's why I did it. If we were mechanics and you were fixing the engine wrong, and I came up to you and I said, you're not supposed to be bashing it with a hammer, and you said, oh, don't tell me how to do my job.
I was going to say. I just was going to say with David touching on what you're saying, real quick. Like, I got really good at doing that, David. I got really, really good at showing up to jobs, and if I saw cops not kind of doing their thing, I got really good at saying, "Hey, man, if I was just an example. Hey, listen, man, if you want, I can actually take this. If you don't want to, I know it's just a report, but the guy, I got really good with kind of saying, I'll take it from here if it's too much for you. I got really good at that, and that because again, you got to take into account that cynicism that a lot of police officers have, that laxative attitude that a lot of police officers have. You got to take into account and you got to understand why they're like that. And it comes from what you're saying, David, lack of supervision, right? It's a that they it just it's there's a lack of it, right? And so
There's
understanding that
nothing as important as street level supervision in
there's
policing.
nothing more important. There's
and
nothing
and
more
and
important.
and because somebody has to be the bad guy because Santo is a cop, Mike is a cop, right? And they're gonna be blah 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 blah. There has to be someone, an adult, however old that adult is, who comes in and says, "No, this is what we're doing because this is what we're doing. You want to hate me? Hate me. That's fine. I know it's very hard, to, especially if a cop is junior to another cop. And let's say some cops will be like, "Hey, yo, let's go fight after this." You know, you need a supervisor to be like, nah, this is what we're doing. He's right. This is what we're doing.
Street level
Or
supervision is essential.
it's the most
Essential.
Absolutely.
important part of policing a city, in any kind of a big city. It's the most important part. It cannot be underestimated. It is, and I don't say, I was a supervisor for a long time, but I was also a cop for a long time. And then I went back to being listen, I cannot overemphasize how important street level supervision is. Mike, you look like you want to say something, bro.
Oh no, yeah. When Tavares was talking about like how he kind of lost respect for those guys on the job, my quick little story was, yeah, I called an 85 when I was working with this other guy because we had 85. I'm sorry, it's like an emergency, like get here now. So this guy basically, we were looking at the time. I guess there was a lot of accidents. I forgot what it was always a points like let's say Broadway and whatever Myrtle, let's say whatever. And this dude just went past the stop sign, past us, went right after him. And it's like, it was almost like GTA. He's there hitting parked cars. We're like, what the hell is the guy's doing? The fuck? So there was a garbage truck. He hits the brakes, hits the garbage truck. I see a girl flying out of the car. I'm like, kidnapping? He runs out the car. We run after him. Insane. I put it over. God bless this one DV cop at the time, and I'm going to say her name. I know I shouldn't say her name, but I love her to death. Mona, I love you. Mona
Oh yeah,
backed us.
Mona's gonna
Fucking
be on the
Mona was the
show
best.
soon, I
She
think.
backed us and caught the girl on Broadway. She caught the girl, and then we found out she wasn't kidnapped, but whatever. But God bless her. Why I got so angry was these other two guys that I thought were my boys. They heard my 85. They were 3 blocks away. And they didn't. How do I know? Because we drove by, we saw them parked there. They were eating. And
Yeah,
I think Tavares,
I've
I
had
think
that.
you know who those two are. And that shit broke my heart. It was guys we had gone out to drink with, not your guys, but other guys we went out to or eat with. We frequented, and we used to joke around in the locker room and laugh and stuff.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
pissed
yeah.
that pissed me off. Oh my god! If that was the other way around, the hell with the food. Let me, I'll never forget that.
But without getting too specific, 'cause I know what you're talking about. But at all my shifts, I've had cops like that who were able to turn around, and things did get better. And I know, and even like I've had cops who I thought I just don't think this person's right for the job, and we were able to turn them around. But some people are not right for the job. The fact is that it is very civil service, very hard to fire people and stuff like that. But if people know that you will not let them get away with stuff, they will not do it. They know, oh shoot, this person's out, they're about. I don't care that they complain. Why is this supervisor coming to my calls? You know what? Because they want to make sure you handle the calls correctly.
Of course.
All right? That's why they're coming. And you know what? There's a lot of, we had this one supervisor. She worked inside most of her career, but one of the cops telling me one of the few times she did patrol, there's an emotionally disturbed person call. Santa, you might have been driving her that day. And emotionally disturbed person call. So they get there, violent, and she's like, let's wait for the sector car to get here. You don't do that. You go in and you handle it. You know, you know who I'm talking about. I think you were driving her that day. And the point is, but that is also somebody who worked inside most of their career.
Well, that goes back to what you were saying, David. That goes back to when she was a police officer, lack of supervision, that cynical attitude continued on to when she herself became a supervisor. So again, that goes back to the beginning of the reinforcement or lack of, right? And now she's a supervisor. What do you expect? Right? Do you expect? And I think I do know who you're talking about. And I remember I wasn't upset at that person when she was doing that. I expected that of this person because I could see how this person was, right? And I got better at that. But one of the reasons that I got better at kind of looking and seeing who's who is because I didn't want to lose any more relationships within the police department. I didn't want to be shunned away from certain people. It's very important to keep strong relationships with the people you work with in this atmosphere, policing, because we're already in stressful situations. We need each other. But like with you, Mike, I gotta tell you, you're a person of compassion, you're a person of wanting to help, and then you got a system that's telling you, let's just bypass that, let's move on.
It's not
You don't
even a
need, you don't
system
need it,
that's telling you that, Santo. It's people. It's imperfect people. It's people not wanting to do their jobs right. It's not even the system,
You know what
really.
it feels? Sometimes it does feel like it's the system, but you're right, David,
Right.
it's not.
Well,
It's not.
but it's not. It's people. It's all run by people. The NYPD. This thing is like I can say that I think the system. There's a lot of bad stuff in the job and this and that, but also some of the greatest people I've ever met were some of the greatest people I ever met were NYPD officers, and I would say that overall it is a good product. It is a good people, not because the training as well. It's not this the academy. It's because it's the on-the-job training, and overall, and you do have a lot of good supervisors. You do have a lot of street-level supervision. But when you don't have that, that's when problems happen. There is a way to train people, but the only way you do that is street-level supervisors have to be out there. You cannot supervise from a desk.
When it comes to shit hitting jobs, I have a question. What do you think is the perception of someone that, for example, calls the police? Because every time someone calls the police, they're in a need, right? We've gone past negotiation in whatever situation. We've gone past thinking sensible. We need the police here. So my question is, now they make that call, the police show up, and you get a situation where it's shit can. What are both of you? This question is for both of you. What do you think is the perception of a person when they see that? Who's kind of like, again, using the word shit can it, and they're left with nothing.
Right. Well, I will say one thing. And look, there are some jobs that are nonsense. There are some calls that are nonsense. We'll all agree with that.
Of
Sometimes people
course.
call the
Man,
police for everything.
man,
They
I'm
want you
talking
to
about
raise
a
their kid.
legitimate one.
They want you, but we're talking about a legitimate call. We're talking about a legitimate call here. And the perception is bad. I had a friend. What happened to him? And this happened relatively recently. Look, body cameras, you figure, will solve a lot of that because people are going to know I can't really get away with not doing this because I'm body camera. But there's still, but anyway, he's the victim of a car theft, right? Car theft. The cops come out. He's got stuff stolen from his car. Cops like, you know what? There's no camera over here. They're never going to catch him. We're not even going to, take a report. Blah blah blah. Which is against NYPD policy, first of all. And this is recent. This didn't happen 5 years ago. This happened within the last year. And it was one of those. I think it's the 112 precinct, so a very cushy precinct. Not a lot of crime. They certainly had time to take the report, but in any precinct, you have to take the report. But not only are those cops giving him, and he's a big supporter of the cops, so he kind of said, well, Dave, I know what they were saying. I said, no, they did the wrong thing. And I said, not only that, but how do you think we establish crime patterns? We take reports. So even if we're not going to, the clues aren't there for this one, now we've established that this car was hit at this day and this time at this location. And it was hit at this day and this time. How do you think we establish patterns? How do you think we go about catching people? A lot of times we're going off of patterns. And so you not taking a report, it's not just about, what's that report going to do for him? His insurance will cover it. It's also about documenting the crime so that detectives and special operations and patrol can go about catching and apprehending this individual. And as we all know, most crime is committed by a small subset of career offenders.
So again, my question is, how do you feel? Well, how did your friend feel? What did he tell you? Obviously, this guy's sympathetic to the police.
He was a little upset, but like I said, a big support of the cops. I told him, no, you know what? They were wrong. There's no justification. You're like, should have taken the report. And everybody would want them to take the report because, like I said, how do you know where the crime occurs is by reports. And like we talked about with ETN before, we were talking about like the intelligence gathering. A lot of policing is intelligence, looking at where the crime's occurring and how we're gonna go about tackling it. It's not just blind like people think. I remember they did this study in the early 90s where they were saying the academics were so surprised that the police knew who the criminals are and where they hang out. So yes, the police know that stuff. But how do you think we know that? We know that by going through reports, by going to reports and going to calls and doing our job, not by people saying, I'm not going to worry about this, and what's another piece of paperwork. Look, do you have to take a report for harassment that's never going to go anywhere and that's kind of nonsense and that it's just people being silly with each other? No. But any crime, you got to document it.
Mike, what about you? What are your experience when you see something like that and the victim is expecting you to do your job and you've seen it not go that way? What do you think from your
it was
perspective?
Awful. I mean, sometimes our hands are tied, so to speak, and it's frustrating. Case in point, like let's say landlord-tenant disputes. I mean, the answer is always it's a civil matter, and it's usually
not allowed to turn off the heat.
Well, yeah, I mean, or change the locks. But if it's like a rent thing, and it's like, damn, I wish I could do more, but my hands are tied. And it's always like, oh, you guys don't want to do your job, or this and that, and you get vilified. It sucks because you can't do more.
A great example of what you're saying too is like some woman goes into a bodega, buys a couple dollars of chips for her kid, and the kid opens the chips and they're freaking disgusting. Now they're not, they're all expired and stuff like that. You get the call there. I can't make the guy give her money back. I can't. It's a civil dispute. Now I can tell him, I think you should give the money back. I can even, if I know it's somebody who's like poor and like really like kind of struggling, I could give him a couple bucks. And we've all done that. I've seen you guys do. I've done it. He's like, whatever. But I can't make the guy, it's a civil dispute. Say, a guy comes in and he says, to the thing and says, I bought this here 2 weeks ago. It doesn't work. Let's say I paid $150. He doesn't want to return your money. It doesn't work. It's a civil dispute. I can't do anything about it.
I always said this. Imagine the police in your living room If the police are in your living room, something went south really fast. Do your job. Try to help someone. I mean, it's easy to just disregard people. That's the word that shit can means. Disregard people. It's so easy to do it. It's not difficult at all. But just kind of like doing your job is not necessarily going out of your way. Disregarding people, man. You gotta remember that we service the public, and these are grandmothers, mothers, brothers, sisters, fathers, daughters, sons that are in a situation. When they call you, they're in a situation. You got to remember that when you go. Now, again, not every call you go to, the people are on the up and up. Sometimes they're angry. They made the call for 911 a little bit too, what's the word? It's out of context. It wasn't necessary. But still, most of the time, when people call for your services, they're actually in a desperate situation, whether you can legally do something or not. They're in a situation. Just remember that, and remembering that you're not servicing a handbook, you're not servicing a pamphlet. You're servicing real people that are having real problems, and that's where I think there's a disconnect within the police departments, and that's where and within the culture, and I think the public doesn't understand that. And within the police culture, there are people like you said, David. They just shit can. They disregard people. And then there's people like us three that we just had an initiative, like a real serious compassion to help people, and we become shunned out. We get
Yes,
excluded. We get excluded.
exactly.
That
Yeah,
that
yeah, that's. But I will say NYPD is better than a lot of departments. If you think other because I have a little experience here, and look, I will say the NYPD is one of the better departments at not doing those things because you see other departments. I don't want to badmouth specific departments, but I'm saying, but like you see somebody smashes into you, rear ends you. Sitting in my customer rear ends me. I get out. This person is drunk off their ass. Okay? NYPD, you know you're going to get in trouble if you don't do something, especially in this day and age. You know you are going to get in trouble. You need to make that arrest. You know this guy's obviously drunk, slurring his words. The person in the car is saying, yo, this guy's drunk. He just hit me, slammed into me. He's drunk. NYPD, even the cops that you kind of got to watch, even they know nowadays,
well, there's
we got to
nothing I
do
could do.
something.
I
Look, I'm
have
not
to.
saying that there isn't
I,
anyone
I have to.
sneaky,
Yeah.
but I got to make the arrest right. There are departments where they will not do it. They will be like, this guy needs to go to the hospital. Maybe he needs to go to the hospital, but he needs to be in handcuffs because he needs to get arrested. He needs to get arrested. No. He's just going to go to the hospital and we'll tow his car. No. And the person saying, this guy just smashed into me. He has 3 prior DUIs. That makes people angry, justifiably angry.
Well, the guy's wearing a Superman tank top. He's not.
Now, listen,
He's not really.
listen,
Just let him be. It's not a big
but
deal.
I'll
He got
say
a
this:
small fender bender.
Superman can't get drunk though. But if Superman was suffering from kryptonite poisoning,
Yeah, right.
put it in
He
your
would
way,
wear.
and he's
He
driving,
would wear
he shouldn't be
NG.
driving a
He
car.
would.
Yeah.
Like,
He
what
would
are you
wear
doing?
NG.
He's with a prostitute, sniffing kryptonite.
Yeah.
Maybe he shouldn't be driving his car
I don't
Mm.
think
or
he
his
should be.
whatever kind of
And if
special
Superman
car he
and if
has.
Superman and if Superman rear ends you and he does not have a vehicle, I don't know. Sounds like a dangerous situation.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, but so I would say the NYPD is better than a lot of departments, believe it or not, at not doing that. I'm just saying you all bet so. But what I think cannot be emphasized enough is that you need supervisors, and you need supervisors who are good cops. If you were not a good cop, you will not be a good supervisor. I said this before. You'd be a bad supervisor. You need to have been a good cop. And there's certain aspects of the job you learn as a supervisor. Let's say you were a good cop. Let's say you were a cop. You worked narcotics your whole time, right? So you were doing, but you didn't do patrol for that much. You were mostly in narcotics. You could learn to be a great supervisor. You'll learn to be a good supervisor. But if you were shuffling papers as a cop, you were never going to be a good supervisor, and because you took the job for the wrong reasons. You didn't, take the job for the right reasons. You never get that experience, and you'll never be good at the job. And Yeah, you can usually tell, but we all know. We all know who knows what they're doing and who doesn't. But the person who is always quick to discount everything everyone says is no good. Now, people are saying some people are crazy and they're saying nonsense, and you got to be like, okay, listen, we got to just shush this stuff aside. But some people have legitimate concerns that maybe they're not articulating as well as they could. But if you listen for longer, sometimes you'll be able to see, oh wait, this is a very legitimate concern. Okay, and I think we all agree with that. But there are people who are just lazy and shouldn't be cops. And and she went inside, and then that whenever she had to work patrol, she'd be angry. We were talking about before. Who knew you were talking about? But there are people. But cops. That's why it's so important. I had this cop. Uh, I had I had been on the 412s when I became a lieutenant. I had been on the 4 to 12 shift. It was like 3 to 12, right? I did not know these people. So when we're doing NYPD went to the steady sector program, NCO program with neighborhood coordinator officer. We had to deal with that. I just had the sergeants on the shift do the assignments because I didn't know the day tour guys. I didn't know them. I was just coming to the shift. So get this guy. He's a bully, big guy, bad cop. One of the guys we're talking about always shit cans jobs he shouldn't. Not good to people. But he has 10 years on the job, so he knows everything. And he'll shit can the jobs, not giving people good. You have to be the supervisor who goes out there and sees this. For years, he worked for supervisors who did nothing. And he loved those supervisors. They were the greatest because they did nothing. They didn't solve the problem. And the cops didn't like him. Nobody liked him, right? So what happens? I go to one call. It's just nonsense. We have this guy, this old pervert white guy, right? Old pervert white guy.
Okay.
But he didn't do any crime or anything like that. And this guy is like, we just gotten the tasers for the cops at that point. He's threatening, he's like holding, I will tase you. I'm like, you're 3 times this guy's size, and the guy's like 60 years old. It just looks bad. And the guy didn't commit any crime. What are you doing? Just put that away. And I told the guy called for some nonsense, and he wasn't a good guy. I told him, don't waste our time with this nonsense, okay? Go away, whatever. But I said, we're doing that. Then probably the next day or maybe later that day, get a call about squatters. It's not squatters, trespassers. All gang members. We get there. He's just yelling at everyone, no control over the situation. I handcuff one. They're all getting arrested. We have a complainant, which he had already talked to. I handcuff one guy. You handcuff the other guy. We handcuff 3 or 4 of them, and they're going. He's just sitting there yelling, doing nothing. I said, I'm not happy about this. And then probably the next day, because it's a busy precinct, next day, he tries to chicane like a child abuse job. And then I kicked him out of his sector and blah, blah, blah. Of course, the PBA was very upset with me. The PBA and all that kind of stuff. But it took me like a day or 2 to kick this guy out of his sector. Where'd
you put him, on another sector or on a foot post?
On a foot post. And then he went to another precinct, and they hated him there too, because all he talked about was how he was a big, tough 113 cop, and they hated him there too.
Wow.
Right. But Santo, what's up? What are you thinking?
I'm just listening to the story, and I'm like, it goes back to the whole thing with the bad cop, the bad cop, good cop, and it's just
and the
lack
cops
of.
appreciated what I did. They all thanked me, by the way. But
Yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it just goes back to training. It just happens. It's just the way it is. Training, supervisory situations need to be taken more serious. I mean, you got supervisors that they just take tests. They don't really have the skill set to become, proficient and proactive supervising. And street level supervising is essential to avoiding situations like that. Had I had that guy there, going back to my story, I'm the secondary officer on a domestic violence situation. Has nothing to do with me. I'm trying to make callers arrest based on guns and drugs. I'm trying to go to special operations. What do I care if this young lady is supposed to get arrested, right? But
Because it's the right thing to do.
but it was the right thing to do, and it was embedded in my head. Here I am. this guy trying to get special operations. You know what? Let me go to the next. Let me go out of my way, and I'm gonna go knock on doors like detectives do. Even though I'm so uniform in a marked vehicle, that's what I did. And it brought me a collar. Yeah, it was a domestic violence. It was felony, uh, uh, but I felt like I did like some squad street work. You know what I mean? It
We
was
got
very
a lot
sad.
of squads. I mean, you're gonna do a lot of, if you're doing, that's the whole thing. You don't just say, "Well, I'm gonna give everything to the detectives," because you have to investigate. You have to investigate, and you have to. There's been times we've been looking for someone for days, for a whole shift, for days, whatever, and you gotta do that. Yes, you might have to run from thing to thing sometimes, but it's always got to be in your mind. I see this guy walking down the street. Oh, we got to grab this guy. You know what I mean? Like, well, this guy's wanted. We got to grab him. It's always important to keep that in your mind and to. That's why, like I said, it's the supervisors, because it supervises with what your supervisors will put up with. That's what your lowest cops, your
Yeah.
best cops, you don't have to worry about. It's the worst cops that you have to worry about. But even your best cops can make mistakes and can not know things, and they need guidance. And the way they become your best cops is also a lot of times the guidance. The way you're trained early matters a lot. People get into bad habits, and they sometimes keep those bad habits their whole careers. Like cops telling someone, ah, it's squatters thing, you got to go to lieutenant court. No, this guy broke in my house a week ago. I know he broke in my house. The
He's
neighbors
making
saw it.
love to my
He
wife.
changed the house. No, that's not a civil dispute. That's trespassing. It's an arrest. Like cops used to always be bad at stuff like that. Well, the guy has paperwork saying he's been here 31 days. Yeah, he printed up a fake lease. I can prove 5 different ways that he broke in here 4 days ago. Doesn't
That's a
matter.
situation. That's a
Like,
situation that's pretty crazy because that's a desperate person, man. Could you imagine being the owner of a house or a home or an apartment, and that happens to you, and the police? You're totally just completely illegal.
well,
Nothing to do with
usually it is
civility.
people who are like absentee.
There's a
You
whole
have to
TV
check on the
show about
property.
that.
Listen, if you're an
Yeah, it's
absentee
really good. Yeah.
property owner and you leave that property open for 6 months, or if even a year, you have to have someone checking on that constantly.
Definitely,
Of
definitely.
course.
You're just screwing over the whole block if you don't, because the bad people are going to move in, and depending on, listen, yeah, usually you can prove that they're lying, but there are times when you can't. If you haven't checked on this property for 3 months, and I can't even locate who the owner is, if I don't have a complainant to press charges, I can't make the arrest, even if I know the guy doesn't live there. You have to have someone to press charges.
Yeah, yeah. And then that person that calls that this legitimate, the owner, the legitimate did leave 6 months, calls you up, and you're like, well, it's a civil matter. Good luck with you. It's. I can imagine that. I can imagine what they must be thinking. Oh my gosh, I'm helpless. I'm helpless.
Yeah, I mean, but anyway, I think we've talked a lot about, we've dwelt on, like, and some of this stuff is negative, but what are some of, like, what do you guys miss about the job, and what are some of the, like, the craziest calls you've been on, that, like, you think that your experience really helped you to sort things out?
So I have an interesting story that, in regards to what you're talking about, David, where a situation where a 911 call was made, and originally it was certain something, and then it turned out to be something else. We get a call early morning. It had to be like 7 a.m. on the dot. Robbery on the corner of this street and that street, right? On the very corner. So obviously this is a robbery early in the morning, Sunday morning, Saturday night, kind of, right? And so we rush it. We were the first officers to arrive there. When we get there, we see this young man on a corner, and I'm going to describe him, right? Hispanic male, really clean cut guy, clean cut kid. I mean, like super clean cut. What are you doing in this neighborhood? Even his car was super clean cut. And it's like, I actually believe. And he gets out the car. He's standing there waiting for us. This kid is like super clean cut, and he's a little bit out of it, And he tells us, "Oh, I just got robbed. I was hanging out, and some guy got me for my wallet, and he's in that building, in that house there." We're like a little confused, like, "Wait, what? What do you mean? How'd you get here?" Blah, blah. At first, it sounds legit. It kind of looks like he might have been driving by. That's what I was thinking, and they got him. and he was a little intox, or not intox. He did seem inebriated slightly. But then, as my partner kind of like saying, "All right," he starts putting all this information over the radio, and I'm talking to the victim here, right? So, dude, are you okay? What happened? He looked a little bruised up in the face, and he was like, "Yeah, it's a guy. He just punched me a couple of times, and well, what did he take? What was in your wallet? And blah blah blah." I'm doing my due diligence here. But then I happened to notice a certain stench. It was really, really strong stench. Like really, like like that baby diarrhea. When babies just poop, it was like fresh poop. And I'm like, what's that? What's that smell? he, tells, he looks at me and like, I kind of lost my bowel movement. And I look, and his shoes, beautiful white sneakers, there's poop all over them. I'm like, dude, is that poop? He's he looked, he goes, "Yes, officer. I lost control. I got scared, and I kind of pooped on myself." So I go, What?"
But that could
It
happen.
could
But
happen.
well, I know that's not what.
I
Go on.
still did not. I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything wrong. I'm thinking, yeah, this was a clean cut kid in a very rough neighborhood. I'm thinking, yeah, maybe he got scared and he's legit. It really did happen. So my partner comes back. My partner's a little bit more savvier than I am. Or wait a minute, what? You just poop on yourself? Just like, yeah, I did poop on myself. And so, all right, so other officers get there, and we start deferring what would happen. It's like it's that house there, it's that house there. He's not really that irate though. I'm feeling bad for this kid. Right? I mean, it was just serious stench. Anyway, long story short, we get to the front of the house. It was a brownstone, and we're knocking on the door, and the guy comes down. African American guy, skinny, good looking dude. He's like, "Hey, officer, how you doing? Come on in." He's very cooperative. So we're confused here. Like, what are we doing here? He's like, "Officers, I have no weapons on me. You can check me." He allows us to
Hello,
check
come
us.
on in.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they're
yeah,
very like.
yeah, yeah. Like everything's like, yeah, like it's sort of like if he was waiting. It was almost like if he was waiting for us. We're totally confused. So he takes us into the apartment, and the apartment has the most strongest chlorine smell I've ever had smelled in my life. Clorox must have been on every corner of this apartment. And he's like, "Did you take this guy's wallet?" I was like, "Yeah, I got it right here." So he gives this to us. This is what the. So at that point, we asked him, "What's going on?" It's like, "Well, officer, here's what happened. He called me up around 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock, actually about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know this guy from the hole in the wall, and he was looking to party. So I live upstairs. This apartment down here is empty. He came here. We were talking, and I said to him, "Let me go back upstairs and put my daughter back to sleep, and we're gonna come downstairs and we're gonna party." So we started partying, a little cocaine, a little bit of drinking, and they started getting sexually active. This is this kid's first time dealing with that, and he just started losing his bowel movement, and there was poop everywhere on the wall. Then they stopped and they started fighting. So while they're fighting, I guess in the interminable moments, he dropped his wallet and ran out. So when he gets outside, he had no other choice. He called 911. And we find all this information out. Now we're upset at him because we almost knocked his door down looking at that. So he tells us, "Officers, I'm sorry, I just called 911 because I don't want my fiance to know that this is happening, and I don't want my grandmother to know." We were so upset at him. He was legitimately engaged. He proved it to us, and the address. I mean, clean cut kid. It was just so disgusting, and it almost went south. We almost knocked
Because
the
he
door
almost locked up.
down.
Because if the cops
We
had just like and can I say how it could have gone south? So now at the end of the day, you talked to this kid. You determined that there was no sexual assault, there was
no, no,
no
no, no, no.
robbery.
It was all
It was
consensual. Drugs
basically
was
a
in
lover's quarrel gone wrong. Basically,
definitely 100%.
lover's quarrel, whatever, a hookup, and then they started like not liking it.
Yeah,
And then he left,
it
and
went
they got
wrong. It went south. It went south.
it just went south. But there was no crime committed. There was no assault. There was no right, whatever. But now, look, there's been times when cops haven't done thorough investigations. You got some. Oh yeah, that guy just he beat the crap out of me and took my stuff. But you do have to. look at it, you have to look at other things. Even before there was cameras everywhere, you
Oh yeah.
have to look at other things. You have to look at what you're observing, what you're hearing, and sometimes talking to the other person. The other person's cooperative. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, hey, what's up? You don't necessarily immediately, unless it's a gunpoint robbery, of course, this or that, but you don't necessarily immediately, you can kind of go get your foot in the door, go in and say, hey, look, what's going on today? Especially if something seems a little fugazi like that, you
Oh
might
yeah.
really
We knocked
quickly
on the doors,
determine that
gun.
nothing
Yeah,
happened.
we knocked on the doors, guns in hand. Yeah, this is just.
Yeah.
I mean, he had
Because there are
legitimate
times when
bruises.
you get that where somebody's like or whatever, it looks like it was a rape, or it looks like it was and sometimes it was. Looks like it was a bad domestic, or sometimes it turns out it's something completely different, and you have to have an open mind.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a great example.
And luckily, like I said, my partner was a little bit more savvier, and so we went from level 100 to level 40 really fast. And then we eventually finding out what it was. But it was one of the most funniest. Oh shit! It's not what we think it is. Situations I've ever been involved
That's
in.
complete
Yeah,
Pretty bad.
you
Pretty
bananas.
bad.
see that sometimes. You see that sometimes. And you have to be always on the lookout, and you always have to, think about
Mike, I know
that kind
you
of
got.
stuff. But Mike,
I
you
know
said you had
Well,
another crazy
I
story.
got a good one. I got to go with you, Santo. I got to tell. Remember the time that this lady came to the precinct and said that she dropped her car keys? I think she was a teacher in one of the schools around the precinct, the A1. And there was a note saying, call, I have your car keys. So she called the number, and the guy's like, yeah, you know what? I'll give you car keys for $100. So Tavares like, call him back, tell him you give him 200. So she did. Meet me. Tell him you'll meet him at this corner. So we're there in the van, and we're waiting. And these two dummies, they show up. We get it's Miami Vice. We pull up in the van, jump out. We almost gave these guys heart attacks. Those poor bastards. I'm thinking back, I feel sorry in that sense. Boom, boom, boom. Arrest into the precinct. Yeah, and we arrested. That was
Was it
my
an
collar.
unmarked van, right?
No, it was a marked van, not
Oh, it was a
unmarked.
marked
It was
van.
a marked van.
Yeah, they thought they were. Yeah, but because remember, you cannot misappropriate. Someone finds your cell phone, they can return it to the police. They can do whatever. They can't call you and say, "Hey, I'll give you your cell phone back for $100." That's misappropriating lost property. That's it's stealing. I will tell you, with the van story, remind me of something.
That was great.
So, like I've had times when I've gotten into people's cars when I was in uniform. And, I've worked plainclothes too, but I've had times when I've been in uniform, but I wanted to sneak up on someone. And I've gotten into the victim's car and said, because I was on a foot post, I didn't have a car. And be like, yo, that's the guy. We have this guy who's a parolee. He's just smashing all these car windows, smashing the car windows. Guy goes out, he's down that block. I jump in the car. The car's covered in glass, but I sit on it because I don't care. I want the arrest, right? I kind of hunch down. He's like, yeah, that's him over there. I hop out. Guy is shocked.
Of
He didn't
course.
fight me, and this guy was so high, and he was gonna
Yeah,
fight.
of
He was
course,
so
yeah.
shocked. I just put the cuffs on so quick because he just couldn't believe it. He smashed like 8 different people's car windows. But like when you talk about like some people are it's so funny when you see how shocked they are when
Mhm.
you jump out, or when
No.
you jump out of
Excellent.
like a plainclothes car. Sometimes like even if you're in uniform, you jump out of an unmarked car and they didn't see you and they didn't notice you. It's like the funniest.
No, yeah, it's like that look of shock. Like in thinking back, I mean, it was funny as hell, but I kind of felt bad because these guys almost died of heart attacks, man. Because that was the last thing they expected. They're going to make an easy $200. Split it 100 each. It was great, and we just rolled up.
Yeah. Now these guys are using everything. You arrest them and they have heroin, crack, meth, weed, of
Jeez.
course, because they all have weed.
Yeah.
All of it's laced with fentanyl. And it's like you wonder how they're ever gonna get better. I mean, I don't know if they're actually addicted to the meth or they just use it this way and that, and it's mainly. But I once had this guy just told me. I was like, what'd you take today? He was smashing his head against the window. What'd you
Jeez.
take today? He's like, I took crack, heroin, meth, probably all of it laced with fentanyl. So I said, dude, that's really serious. That fentanyl is really serious.
Mhm.
And I said, we have to get you help. He's like, nah, man, I've been Narcaned like 30 or 40 times already. I'm like
So
immune to
he's a
that.
damn. That's sad.
You're creating. I talked to source security. I arrested this guy twice on warrants, and he had a bunch of stuff, stolen stuff from Target. The Target guys have Narcaned him
What?
8 or 9 times. So it's like, they're developing such a tolerance. If me or you got a little bit of this fentanyl in us, we
It's
drop
dead.
dead. If we
They're
weren't
dead.
Narcan,
Yeah.
we'd die. But these guys are developing a big tolerance for it. But
Wow.
I think we're gonna wrap it up.
All right. Great.
All right.
Awesome
I want to
stuff.
thank Taveras.
Yes.
Who his video wasn't great, so we might have him on audio anyway because his
Ah,
video wasn't.
damn.
But and I want to thank Mike and his figurines.
Yes. My action figures.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. And cops have gotten a lot of bad, press, this and that. But there are things that need to be improved, and there are bad cops, and there are good cops. Now, are cops indiscriminately murdering people? No, no statistics back that up. Is it very rare? Are cops stealing people's money? Very rare. Look, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It does. Has there been bad shootings? Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. Yes.
But it's the main thing that is a problem is just supervision. Cops not doing what they should be doing and not. And it's not common. Lots of cops are great, and they will go through hell for you. Okay,
Right.
but there are cops who are not doing what they're doing, and the main thing is you need supervision because you can't. Yes, as a cop, you should be able to say, okay, well, you should help us, but it's really hard if you don't have that
Well,
authority.
yeah. Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
can't do that. Thanks a lot. I want to thank the guests, and once again, just want to say another body in Brooklyn got a lot of great reviews on it. And a lot of people have been reaching out. I want to thank everyone who's bought the book and who's commenting on it. And then Bullets Over Bourbon, the short fiction. I did not promote it at all. I just
promote it
kind
now.
of released
Right.
it on the fly. Well, look, but I had some real good advanced reviews. But if you want to check that out too, and I'd appreciate it. And I think I've heard nothing really but good things about either of them, and so I'd appreciate it. And if you want to be a guest on the show, there's a form now you could fill out, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And we appreciate everyone's support, and we're trying to answer everybody on YouTube and everything like that. We're trying to answer everyone as quickly as possible. We really
All
appreciate
right.
everyone's support. Thank you so much.